you're going to have to face this doing media work. There will be pressures on you to say, hey, people can't pay attention to more than sound bites. You got to make it 5-minute chunks. The word size is too big. Make it for an 8th grade level, right? Which is saying people are dumb, so spoon feed them stuff that dumb people can handle, which to the degree you do that and it's successful will keep people dumb. But that's what, like, those are the pressures in anyone doing broadcast, even for a hopefully good intention, right? And if we want people to actually be able to make sense of the world well, you can't do it in very short periods of time with lots of distraction and oversimplified. Like, if you look at anyone who actually increased the sense-making capacity of the world, you look at any scientist or philosopher, they didn't do it in tweets. And they didn't do it radically distracted. And they didn't do it in a dumbed-down process, right? Like, I have so many people who have written to me saying, like, we want to create a new kind of education, young people, we want to create a new kind of education that makes everybody like Bucky Fuller's or Leonardo's, that conditions polymaths. And they say this because I've written some stuff on that topic. And that they have some sense that they could lead that. And I'm like, have you read Bucky's books? Like, well, no, we mostly don't read books. And have you read the references in Bucky's books to just see the amount of shit that he read and referenced to make sense of things well? And so there's a decoupling of the sense of the agency possible with what it takes to do it. It's, like, there's a saying everywhere in almost all domains to this effect of, like, everybody wants to be buff, but nobody wants to lift heavy ass weights, or everybody wants to win, but nobody wants to work harder. There's something like that happens here, is if I want to be able to make sense of the world well, I have to work at that. And if I want to be able to make sense of the world better than I currently do, like, attention requires being trained, just like muscles require being trained. Thinking clearly requires being trained. And anytime there's a hormetic process. Hormesis is the principle by which you stress an adaptive system to increase its adaptive capacity. So I have to stress a muscle to get the muscle to grow. If I'm lifting an amount of weight that's super easy, there's no input that says the muscle needs to be bigger, and there's a cost to getting bigger, right? So it's only going to go through that cost if it's being stressed. And the same is true, like, if I expose myself to more heat and more cold than is comfortable, I actually gain greater metabolic flexibility to deal with heat and cold, which means that if I stay in an environment where I always have heating and air conditioning, I'll actually lose metabolic flexibility. You have to stress the system to be able to grow the system in a particular kind of way. Not all stressors are going to grow the system. But this is definitely true cognitively, which means if I keep paying attention to hypernormal stimuli that are moving quickly, so I get the stimuli of lots of novelty, I'm going to be decreasing my attention. But if I want to have any kind of nuanced view, I have to be able to hold multiple partial views in working memory. It's not that some people have good memory or good attention and other people don't intrinsically, any more than some people are buff and some aren't intrinsically. It's developable, but it has to actually be developed. So the impulse to say, hey, make it really simple so everybody can get it, and the impulse to say, help people actually make sense of the world well are different things. Now, some people will make stuff technical seeming intentionally to obscure it as a power game, right? So that to encourage others to defer their sense-making to them. I understand this complex shit, you're not going to be able to understand this, so defer authority to me. We want to do something. If we actually want to empower people, I don't want them to defer their sense-making to me. But I also don't want them to do lazy, shitty sense-making or defer it to anyone else, which means I want them to grow the quality of their own sense-making, which means to grow the depth of their care, right? Anti-nihilism, to grow the depth of their care, to grow the depth of their earnestness, their own self-reflexiveness, to pay attention to their biases and where their sloppiness in thinking, their own skills and capacity. I want them to grow their attention span and both the clarity of their logic and the clarity of their intuition and the noticing when something's coming from intuition or logic and how to relate those, like all of those things. But that's actually what increasing sovereignty means.